In this video, we are going to learn about casting, and it's really important that you've done the data types tutorial before casting, because casting is all about changing the data type of a variable. So when a variable is created, Python automatically assigns a data type to that variable. So for example, if you input anything and save it in a variable, that input automatically comes in as a string. Now you could be asking someone's age, you could be asking for their average mark on a test, which should be integers or floats, but it will automatically come in as a string. So this is where casting comes in, and this is where we can change the data type of that variable. So there's kind of 4 different ways that we'll look at doing this. So str will change a data type into a string. Now we'll look quite a bit later on with some file handling and stuff of when we need to use str. We won't use it as much in the beginning of learning Python, but it can be really helpful to cast numbers into a string if you need to be able to add them onto other strings. Int, and we'll use this all the time, this turns anything into an integer, so we use this a lot with input, and we're going to look at an example of that next. Float turns something into a float, and that can be really useful again with input. And then bool changes something into a boolean. When it turns it into a boolean, it has to be true or false already. This one's not frequently used because normally you would just have it saved as a boolean already, but it is an option in Python. So this is kind of the most common example of when we're going to use casting. So if you notice here, normally we would have had something equals input. Because an age is going to be an integer, we are casting that input into an integer. So we've added these extra brackets. I've put them in green here for you. We've added those extra brackets around our input. So what this line says is that anything inputted, first we'll input it. So let's say input 15. That is going to automatically be a string because in Python input is automatically a string. And then straight away we are going to cast that input into an integer. So now age will be 15 as an integer. And then new age, we can, because its age is now an integer, we can add on 5 to it. So we can say in 5 years you will be new age. So that means if they enter 13, it will say in 5 years you will be 18. If this was a string, if we did not cast it into an integer, we wouldn't be able to add an integer onto it. We'll look at this later on, but when you add things, they have to be of the same data type. Let's look at a couple examples of why we actually need casting. So let's say we want to have a user input 2 numbers and we want to output the sum of those 2 numbers. So without casting, we would have num1 equals input, enter a number, and we would have the same thing, and I'll call it num1 and num2. So I've got 2 variables which we've inputted. Now remember, when we input, those are automatically going to come in as strings. So even though we've asked them for numbers here, that's automatically going to be a string. So if I were to print num1 plus num2, let's go ahead and run this code. So let's say my first number is 7 and my second number is 5. Now I should get 12 because 7 plus 5 is 12, but it's given me 75. And the reason it's done this is because it's taken these as strings, so it's what's called concatenated them, and it's just put them together. And this would be quite similar if instead of numbers we had words. So if we ask them to enter a word, I can enter hello students, and it'll add them together and it'll say hello students, right? And that's great when we have words because that can be useful, but for numbers that's not what we want. So let's come back to inputting numbers. So if we cast them, so we want them to be integers, so let's cast them into integers. Now when I run this, I can do 7 and 5, and now it's giving me 12, which is what it should be. So that's one example of when we need casting. You'll see some more later on in the videos, but this is the most common of inputting integers. You can just go ahead and do int there like that, and just don't forget those double brackets on that side.